Get ready, because today we're talking afterlife, but not just any afterlife. We're diving into how it's described in the LDS Doctrine and Covenants Section 138.
Doctrine and Covenants. That's a core text for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Right. Now, I know for some listeners, that might sound, well, a bit niche.
Like peeking into a world they might not know much about.
Exactly. But trust me, this is fascinating stuff. Think of it like decoding a cultural puzzle box. Even if you're not familiar with the LDS faith, it's a glimpse into how one group of people has envisioned the great beyond.
I'm all about expanding our understanding. What makes this section so special?
Well, it's not just a dry theological text. It's a personal account of a vision.
A vision. Like someone saw something.
Yeah. A guy named Joseph F. Smith. He was the president of the LDS Church back in 1918.
Okay, so we're talking over a century ago.
Yeah.
Got it.
And this vision, it's basically his window into what happens after we die, what the afterlife looks like, according to LDS beliefs.
Okay, now I'm really hooked. Take us there. Set the scene for us.
Picture this. It's 1918, and Joseph F. Smith is deep in thought. He's pondering scriptures, specifically some verses from 1 Peter.
Chapters 3 and 4, where it talks about Jesus preaching to the spirits in prison.
You know it. That whole "he descended into hell" bit.
Yes, a passage that sparked countless interpretations. What's the LDS take?
Well, it's not about some fiery underworld or eternal damnation.
Really?
Nope. In LDS theology, that prison is referring to the spirit world. It's a temporary stop, a place where spirits go after death while they wait for something else.
Interesting. So not a final destination, more like a layover.
Exactly. And there's this sense of anticipation, of waiting for something more to come. And as Smith is contemplating all this, his understanding suddenly expands.
Like a light bulb moment.
Big time. He's granted this incredible vision of the spirit world.
Whoa, hold on. Before we get to the vision, I think it's important to pause and talk about this concept of a spirit world. Not everyone listening might be familiar with how the LDS Church views things.
Totally. So for those who aren't familiar, the LDS Church believes that when we die, our spirits and bodies separate. But it's not the end of the story.
There's more to come.
Absolutely. They believe in the resurrection, the eventual reuniting of the spirit with a perfected physical body.
So the spirit world is kind of like an in-between state.
Right. Think of it as a waiting room. But not a boring one. It's full of activity and anticipation, and it's not the final destination.
It's a stepping stone to something bigger.
Right. And in Smith's vision, he sees this huge gathering of spirits, just countless numbers stretching as far as the eye can see. But here's the twist. Jesus shows up, but he doesn't address everyone equally.
Okay, that's interesting. Tell me more about that.
It's almost like there's a division, a separation between the righteous and the wicked. Those who lived good lives are surrounded by light and peace, while those who weren't so righteous are in a kind of spiritual darkness.
It's reflecting that age-old idea that our actions in life have consequences.
Exactly. But it's not just about punishment or reward. It's about our state of being, our spiritual preparedness for what's to come.
That makes sense. But logistically, how can Jesus preach to all those spirits, especially in the time between his death and resurrection? It just doesn't seem possible.
It's mind-boggling, right? That's where LDS theology gets really interesting.
Lay it on me.
So, according to the vision, Jesus didn't go it alone. He organized a force of messengers.
Messengers, like spirit helpers.
Yeah, chosen from among the righteous spirits to spread the gospel throughout the spirit world. It's this huge ongoing missionary effort, even after death.
Wow. So even in the afterlife, there's still a chance to learn and change.
That's the beauty of it. It speaks to God's mercy and this ongoing opportunity for progression.
Okay, I'm following so far. So we've got this massive gathering, this division, and this army of spirit missionaries. Anyone we might recognize in the crowd?
Oh, yeah. Smith sees some serious VIPs. Adam and Eve are there, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Isaiah. The list goes on and on. It's like a who's who of the Bible.
It sounds like a family reunion of epic proportions.
And each of these figures, they represent key stories and teachings in LDS theology. Like Noah, he's not just about the ark. He represents obedience to God, even when it seems impossible.
And Abraham.
He's the embodiment of faith, of being willing to sacrifice everything for a higher purpose. Each figure adds another layer to the vision's meaning.
Okay, starting to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Now, there was one detail you mentioned earlier that really stood out to me. Something about the spirits describing being separated from their bodies as bondage. That's intense imagery.
It's a powerful statement, right? And it underscores a central belief in LDS theology. The spirit and the body are meant to be together. That separation is unnatural. It creates a yearning, a longing for that eventual reunion in the resurrection.
It's not just about location, it's about being whole.
Exactly. And it reinforces that the afterlife isn't stagnant, it's dynamic, there's a striving, a movement towards something more complete. And just as Smith is absorbing all of this, he spots some familiar faces among all those spirits. And not just any faces. We're talking about his own ancestors. His father, Hiram Smith, along with Brigham Young, John Taylor, and Wilford Woodruff.
Wow. His own family, right there in the mix.
Yeah. And not just family, but key figures in the early LDS church. Think about that. Seeing your own ancestors in this grand cosmic vision, it must have been incredibly powerful.
And it ties back into that idea of certain spirits being reserved for specific missions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, their roles weren't just coincidence, it was all part of a bigger plan.
It adds this whole layer of destiny and purpose, not just to their lives, but to the unfolding of the LDS faith itself. And it's all right there in this vision.
I am speechless.
Yeah.
This is turning out to be way more complex and fascinating than I ever imagined. Okay, so where do we go from here? We've covered so much ground, but I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
We are. There's so much more to unpack.
It's a fascinating concept, right? This idea that certain souls are prepped for key roles even before they're born. And in this vision, Joseph F. Smith sees some of those figures firsthand.
Yeah. And these aren't just random ancestors. They're giants in early LDS history.
Exactly. They shaped the course of the church. And their leadership, according to LDS belief, wasn't just happenstance. It was destiny.
Okay, help me wrap my head around that. So it's not about them striving for power or anything like that.
Not necessarily. LDS theology acknowledges personal ambition, but they also believe in a divine plan. It's like, imagine you're given a script, but only certain scenes are fixed. You have freedom within that structure.
So they had free will, but they were also guided toward a specific purpose. It's like this cosmic dance between agency and destiny.
It's a delicate balance, and it makes you reconsider those historical figures in a whole new light, right? Their struggles, their triumphs.
Yeah.
It all becomes part of this grand narrative unfolding across time.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. And speaking of mind-blowing, remember how those spirits in the vision describe being separated from their bodies as bondage? That really stuck with me.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. And it's not just about being stuck in some ethereal waiting room.
Yeah, right. It speaks to a deeper longing. In LDS theology, the spirit and body are meant to be united. This separation creates a yearning for wholeness, a desire for that eventual reunion through resurrection.
So even the righteous spirits are striving towards something, towards this deeper level of existence. It's not like they've reached some heavenly finish line and are just relaxing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It challenges the idea of a static afterlife where everything is fixed and settled. Instead, we're presented with a dynamic, evolving state of being where progression continues. And that's a key point to keep in mind as we explore what this vision reveals about missionary work.
Missionary work, you mean like spreading the gospel?
Exactly. Remember how Smith sees Jesus organizing messengers to preach in the spirit world? Well, that leads to a fascinating belief. Missionary work doesn't end when we die. It continues on both sides of the veil.
Whoa. Wait, so even in the afterlife, people are out there, sharing the good word. That's dedication.
It is. It speaks to the importance LDS theology places on everyone having the opportunity to learn about and accept the gospel, regardless of when or where they lived. And this leads to another intriguing practice: baptisms for the dead.
Baptisms for the dead. Okay, now that's something I haven't heard of before.
It's a practice unique to the LDS Church. Essentially, living members perform baptisms on behalf of their deceased ancestors.
So they're like stand-ins, giving their ancestors a chance to receive this ordinance even though they're gone.
Exactly. And it's not about forcing anything on those who've passed on. It's viewed as an act of love, a way to extend a helping hand across the veil. It's based on the belief that everyone deserves the opportunity to progress spiritually even after death.
It's pretty profound. So it's not just about individual salvation. It's about this interconnectedness, this responsibility to help our ancestors and loved ones advance on their spiritual journeys, even if they're no longer physically with us.
It's a beautiful concept, isn't it? And it really expands our understanding of what it means to be a community, a family, stretching across generations and even beyond the veil of mortality.
I'm starting to see how this vision really ties together so many core beliefs in LDS theology. It's not just about what happens after we die. It's about how our choices now impact those who come after us, both in this life and in the next.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And this brings us to a crucial question. If missionary work continues in the spirit world, and our actions have such profound ripple effects, how should we view our lives in the here and now?
It's like suddenly everything feels a lot more significant. It's not just about focusing on my own spiritual journey anymore. It's about contributing to the progress of others, both living and dead.
Precisely. And that's a powerful and empowering realization, wouldn't you say? We have the potential to make a difference, to impact the lives of others in ways we may never fully comprehend.
I feel like we've really challenged some traditional notions about what happens after we die.
Absolutely. And now I think it's time to bring it all home, to explore what this vision means for us, not just as observers, but as individuals on our own journeys.
You know, for me, one of the biggest takeaways has been how this vision reframes our understanding of death itself. It's not an ending, but a transition into this vibrant, ever-evolving existence.
Right. Like, imagine graduating from one level of schooling to another. Each stage offers new opportunities for growth and learning. It never really stops.
And it really emphasizes that our choices still matter, even after we die.
Exactly. We talked about consequences, but also about this amazing potential for redemption, for growth and change, no matter where we are on our spiritual path.
It's a message that feels so universal, so hopeful.
Absolutely. The idea that we have agency, that our choices have meaning, that we can evolve even after death, that's powerful.
But what's also striking is this emphasis on connection. Connection between the living and the dead, between families, and even between those working to share the gospel on both sides of the veil. It's like we're all woven together.
It's like this incredible tapestry, right? Connecting us across generations, across time and space. It speaks to that deep human need for belonging, for something bigger than ourselves.
And realizing that we're all interconnected in this profound way should inspire us to live differently, shouldn't it?
Absolutely. It invites us to be more aware of the impact our actions have on those around us, both those we can see and those we can't.
So it's not just about our individual spiritual journey, it's about contributing to the good of the whole, about making a difference.
Exactly. And whether through simple acts of kindness, sharing our faith, or striving to live by our values, we each have a role to play in this grand unfolding.
It's like we each hold a piece of a giant puzzle. And by becoming our best selves, we're contributing to something far greater than we could ever imagine.
Beautifully said. And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. If missionary work continues in the spirit world, if that veil is thinner than we think, how does that change how we interact with those who've passed on?
Such a powerful question. Does it inspire us to live with more intention, knowing that our actions have ripple effects we may never fully grasp?
It certainly does for me. And perhaps that's the most profound takeaway from our exploration today. It's not about having all the answers, but about embracing the mystery, seeking understanding, and recognizing that the journey doesn't end with our physical death.
It's a journey filled with possibility, purpose, and endless potential for growth. It's been amazing exploring this aspect of LDS theology.
I agree. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the afterlife.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.